pandemic. Our program flow for today would be, I will be giving first a biblical perspective and survey of the pandemics. And then si Pastor Alban will be introducing our two guest panelists po ngayon. At after po nilang mag-present, both of them, magkakaroon po tayo ng questions and answers later on para sa discussion. For the purposes of the flow of the program, we will let them present muna yung kanilang slides. And afterwards, doon lang po tayo magtatanong. So, recently, napakarami na ang naapektuhan at napakarami ang namatay. I think dito sa dito sa Pilipinas pa lang, ito ang data natin eh. 1,209,000. Kahapon medyo mataas ang nagka-COVID 8,000 plus at ang deaths dumadami. And the new trend is in the Bisaya and in the Mindanao area, parang lumilipat doon yung bilis at saka dami. To such a point na ang mga hospitals ay nasa critical level na. So, medyo yung shift ng COVID papunta dyan sa down south. No? Pero yung pandemic po kasi ay hindi unique sa ating panahon. Highlighted lang ata ngayon dahil, well, panahon tayo ng social media. Sa Antonine Plague, as early as 165 to 185 AD, ang namatay na dyan, 5 million ang estimate nila. Mas marami sa the Plague of Justinian na 541 to 542, mga 30 to 50 million ang estimated na namatay. So, sobrang dami, no? And even in Japan, yung Japanese smallpox epidemic that happened in 735 AD, 1 million, which is 1/3 of the total population of the country. Ganong karami yung naapektuhan. Pero ang pinakasikat marahil, yung tinatawag natin bubonic plague, na ang estimate nila, 1/3 of the whole of Europe was 200 million ang namatay. They were saying na huminto na lang yung plague dahil wala nang taong mapatay yung plague, kaya parang nagkaroon ng natural cessation yung pagdami niya. But even today, ang bubonic plague kills around 1,000 to 3,000 people all over the world. So existing pa rin yan, ano? Then the era of the smallpox in 1520, and another great plague, yung 7th century great plague, 3 million ang namatay doon. And then the cholera outbreak, but one of the recent na talagang naapektuhan tayo, yung Spanish flu, 40 to 50 million ang namatay noong 1918 to 1919 in the Philippines alone, ano? Tiningnan ko yung data, about 80 to 90,000 died sa Spanish flu sa Pilipinas. Kumpara sa COVID, mas malala itong nangyari. Nga lang, hindi highlighted. Which tells us na ang plague is a recurring phenomena magmula pa noon hanggang sa ating panahon, and most probably predicted even in the Bible that there will be future plagues. Kaya kailangan nating maintindihan ang nature nito. Okay. Well, very famous, for example, sa mga nag-aaral sa Biblia, yung 10 plagues. But you see, the 10 plagues are more of not diseases in itself, kundi mga phenomena na ang secondary effect ay sakit. No? Nandyan yung turning water into blood, so yung frogs, yung lice, yung flies, namatay yung mga hayop, then the boils, then the hail, locust, darkness, and the death of the firstborn, which is probably considered also as a disease. Kaya pag plague ang pinag-uusapan, meron agad tayong biblical reference. And in fact, in the future, yung 7 last great plagues sa Revelation is pictured as this. Merong source. Hindi ko alam kung ang source na ito ay manifestation ng isang pandemic na naman. But ang description sa Biblia, 1/3 of the whole population will be affected all over the world. Then the turn of the sea to blood, fresh water to blood, the sun will burn. Hindi nating alam kung may cosmic phenomena na mangyayari. Then darkness, hindi natin alam kung ang cause nito ay isang cataclysm na may akong binabasa akong article, if a comet hits the earth, darkness will be its initial effect sa atin, no? Yung support of Babylon, it's more of a war, and the seventh plague are phenomena. So pag sinabi nating plague, nasa sandwich yung biblical understanding natin na plague in the past and the coming plague in the future. Kaya hindi mo masisisi na karamihan ng conspiracy theory pagdating sa COVID nanggagaling sa religious circle kasi parang predisposed tayo na pag-usapan ng plague, no? But you see, si Harry Roque po ito. You see, the Bible has always emphasized the strategy of wearing mask, washing, and keeping distance as a matter of strategy pagdating sa communicable diseases. Kaya yung wear mask, wash hands, keep distance, nasa Bible pa po iyan bago banggitin ni Harry Roque, no? So, magtataka tayo na meron ng ganitong prescription ang Biblia in the light of the fact na yung current practices ng medicine sa ancient civilization is really terrible and awful. Ibig sabihin, walang knowledge of science, kundi it's pseudoscience mixed with religion. So, tiningnan ko ano yung mga popular methodology and medicine sa panahon during Bible times and even after and even the New Testament times. No? Ito ang mga popular na medical practices during that time. Bloodletting. Ito yung paniniwala na kaya nagkakasakit ang tao ay sumusobra ang dugo o yung balanse ng fluid. Pag nag-excess yung dami ng dugo mo, magkakasakit ka. Si George Washington, unang presidente ng Amerika, namatay sa paniniwala na sobra ang dugo niya, kaya nagpa-bloodletting siya. No? Tinatanggalan ng tinatawag nilang bad blood. Yung trepanation, ito yung makikita nyo sa picture na binubutas ang ulo sa paniniwala na may mga masasamang spirito na lumalabas. Unang ginagamit ata ito sa mga nababaliw. So binubutas nila yung skull para lumabas yung pressure which they believe are evil spirits, no? Yung pag-inom ng mercury. Alam niyo po ba yung mercury? Ang mercury ay ito actually yung element na ginagawa para yung ginto sa miniminang mga bato ay humiwalay. So this is a very poisonous liquid. Pero during the time sa ancient Persia, tsaka sa Greek, ginagawa nila tong ointment. At even in some Chinese medicine, iniinom. Mabilis na nawawala ang sakit kasi mabilis na nawawala ang pasyente, no? Yun ang isang doon. Then animal dung ointment. Recently sa COVID sa India, may napabalita na nag-cover ng Daokang, no? Yung isang religious sect na ang ginawa nila, iniinom nila yung pupo ng baka sa paniniwalang iyon ay makakagaling sa kanila. But in the ancient world, ginagawa na ito sa mga ancient people, no? Lalo na sa ancient Egypt. Lahat ng klase ng dung ay pinapahid o kaya ini-ingest. Then one popular in the New Testament times, ang isa sa popular na yung tinatawag nilang cannibal cures. Ang cannibal cures ay ito yung paniniwala na kapag ikaw ay nag-ingest ng isang bodily part, halimbawa ng isang gladiator, mapapagaling yung iyong sakit. Ang isa sa pinaka-popular nun ay nung mauso yung pagdidikdik ng mga ginagawang powder yung mga mami sa Egypt. Ang tawag doon, corpse medicine. Iyon ang pinanggagamot nila. So, hindi mo ma-imagine na gagawin iyon. But ito yung background sa biblical times, ancient times. Kaya mamamangha ka na ang Biblia merong modern solution kahit sa infection at current difficulty natin at this time. Ito ang tanong kasi, In an era where there is no framework of science or knowledge about bacteria, viral flu, pathogen, and the life cycle of germs, how would God explain to His people the dangers of infection? So, significant na tanong yun. Paano nga naman ipapaliwanag ng Diyos ang idea ng infection kung wala pang framework of science para maipaliwanag ito? Ito ang sagot. The answer is ritual cleansing. So, kailangan niyang ipaliwanag sa terms that He would have the same effect kahit hindi na ipapaliwanag yung process. So ano ang sagot ng Diyos para ipaliwanag ang idea ng infection? Ritual cleansing, ceremonial washing, religious bathing, yung pagde-designate ng disease as clean and unclean, as clean and or unclean, enforced with religious consequences such as terms like holy and unholy. So yung Old Testament wala pa namang concept para matanggap ng tao yung idea ng infection. So ang Diyos nagpaliwanag couch in religious language and in religious concept. No? Halimbawa, ang unang paliwanag na makikita natin sa Leviticus ay ito. The biblical quarantine rightly orders the whole community to diagnose, separate, and quarantine those who are sick. Matatagpuan ito sa Leviticus 13. So pinapaliwanag dito kung merong klase ng spot na pumuputi, tingnan mo kung yung balahibo kasama pumuputi. The priest is to examine the sore on the skin. Pag yung hair ng sore ay nag-turn white at nag-appear ito ng skin dip, i-pronounce iyong ceremonially unclean. Tapos ikwa-quarantine ng 7 days. So, wala pa namang concept na ang life cycle ng germs ay 7 days. Pero 7 days na agad. Pag nag-unchange, i-quarantine pa uli ng another 7 days, 14 days. Hindi kaya doon nakuha ng WHO yung pagkwa-quarantine natin sa COVID ng 14 days. Parang iyon yung life cycle ng bacteria, ng virus. No? Pero kung hindi naman magbabago at hindi skin deep yung sugat, pwede nang i-pronounce ng priest na clean siya. Pero at the meantime, for the meantime, habang merong kang sore at under observation, you are to be isolated. So, yung ayos kasi ng Israel noon, yung tabernacle nasa gitna, ang nakapalibot sa camp ay yung mga priest. Tapos behind sa bahay ng mga priest, yung mga warriors at yung mga tribes. Tapos may tinatawag silang area na outside the camp. Yung area ng outside the camp, doon pinapadala yung mga may sakit. So that they will not affect the whole community. So, dito pa lang makita na natin yung wisdom ng Diyos na kailangan tingnan at habang inoobserbahan, i-separate na agad at i-quarantine siya. Okay. Now, the Bible speaks of covering of the mouth and announcing the disease for social distancing. Ito, meron na palang maskara nung araw. Kapag may idea ang Diyos na ang virus pwedeng maging aerial. Kaya sinabi sa Leviticus 13, anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes. Para ano? Para malayo pa lang makikita ka na, hindi ka nalalapitan. Let their hair become unkempt. Kasi iyon ang itsura ng nagmo-mourn. Cover the lower of their face and cry out, unclean. Ang itsura nun, maskara. The lower of your face. As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean and they will remain in such a condition and in such na itsura. Ngayon, paano mo ipapaliwanag sa mga tao na ang bacteria ay airborne? Hindi mapapaliwanag yun, walang concept Ang binigay agad ng Diyos, solusyon agad. Ditakpan mo yung bibig at itsura ng someone who is mourning. So, tingnan natin ulit. The Bible speaks of the possibility of transmission through things like clothes and pots and things touched by the sick person. So, again, ang Diyos, hindi naman maipapaliwanag sa kanila dahil wala pang concept of science na ang virus natatransmit through touch. Pero dito pa lang, ipinakita na sa Leviticus 15 yung possibility at ibinigay na agad ng Diyos yung solusyon. Ang sabi doon, if a man, meron siyang mga bodily fluids such as sipon, iyak, o sa ears, o sa kanyang genitals, pag iyon ay biglang lumabas, he is to be pronounced unclean. Whatever he touch, kailangang hugasan at i-separate i-quarantine ng 7 days. Whoever the man touches who has a discharge must wash clothes and bathe with water. And they will be unclean till evening. Anong ibig sabihin they will be unclean till evening? Yung nahawakan niya, hindi rin hahawak ng iba hanggang 1 full day. No? Kailangan din, pati yung anyone, the man with a discharge touches without rinsing his hands with water must wash their clothes. Kasi in the previous discussion sa Leviticus 13, pag may mga mold na nakita, dapat sunugin agad yung damit. No? And then a clay pot. Ano yung significant ng clay pot na to? A clay pot that the man touches must be broken. And any wooden article is to be rinsed with water. Yung clay pot kasi, maraming natetempt na yung pinagkainan ng tao, gamitin uli. Kasi mahalagang bagay ang clay pot. Kumbaga, it's a cherished possession. In fact, ang clay pot, pag na-preserve, pwedeng ipamana sa mga kapamilya mo. Pero dito, pinababasag ng Diyos. Parang sinabihan ka na, yung nagamit na cellphone na, pag ginagamit yan at parating hinahawakan, itapon nyo na. Parang ewan ko kung may sumunod sa atin. Pero parang ganun eh. Kahit yung importanteng gamit, kailangan pakawalan mo. Kasi, ang Diyos ay alam ang strength ng transmission ng germs. So, let me just conclude. Mamaya, pwede tayo magtanong. No? We live in a fallen world. The reality of death and disease will remind us of the entrance and reality of sin affecting all creation and our need for the redemption ng Panginoon. Ang mundong ito ay hindi ang permanenteng tirahan. At ina-admit ng Biblia na ang mundong ito ay fallen. And along with that fallenness, yung temporariness ng buhay. At kasama sa temporariness ng buhay, yung fragility of our bodies and our life. Sabi sa Romans 12, therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin. So yung idea ng death is also the idea of decay, of mortality. In this way, all men died o naging mortal, susceptible sa sickness, sa disease, sa old age, sa accident. Nevertheless, sabi sa verse 14, death reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses. Kasi they were discussing the law. Even over those who did not sin by breaking a command as did Adam, who is the pattern of the one to come. Kahit si Adan na hindi nag-break ng law kasi wala pang law, apektado ng idea of death because sin entered through it. Ang ibig sabihin nun, whether ikaw ay believer o unbeliever, yung idea ng death at disease will come. No? Bakit? Sabi sa Romans chapter 8, ito, hindi lang kasi tao ang naapektuhan, kundi naapektuhan ang buong creation. Sabi sa Romans 8, for the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Bakit daw? For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice. Ibig sabihin na damay siya. Nadamay siya doon sa decay brought about by sin. Hindi niya ito kagustuhan. And yet the creation, along with man, will be redeemed. It will be liberated from its decay, its bondage, at magkakaroon ng time na all creation will not be touched by death nor decay. All things will be made whole. Yun ang maganda. Ang second, tingnan natin itong conclusion na ito. God has always been aware of the potency, danger, and transmission of diseases. Even though there was no language yet or concept that can be used to explain its processes, except in religious in descriptive manners, which are observable by the people of that time. Ibig sabihin, alam na ng Diyos, ever since, kung ano ang bacteria. Siya nag-create nun eh. Created things lahat ng ito eh. Alam na ng Panginoon ang potency ng mga bagay na iyan. Wala nga lang language na makapag-describe pa, bakas wala pa namang reference. So from the beginning up to this time, alam at hindi hidden sa Panginoon itong pandemic na ito. Pangatlo, tingnan niyo po ito. God has allowed and prescribed natural processes to prevent, contain, and even heal contagious diseases without even delving into the life cycle of germs. Ibig sabihin, kahit hindi pa ini-explain yung idea ng germs during the time of the Levitical era, ang Panginoon naglalagay na ng mga prescription kung paano siya gagamutin. Nga lang sa religious language. Ganon kabait at kagaling ang Panginoon. By the way, sa Leviticus 13, 14, and 15, hindi kinokondem ang nagkakasakit. Ulitin ko po uli iyon ha. Okay, ito sa green. Wala pong instant na sinabi na ang may kasalanan nung nagkasakit ay kasalanan niya. Sineseparate siya for religious reason, which we know in the background is also for hygiene. Kaya napaka-double whammy minsan kapag sasabihan mo yung nagkasakit, hindi kasi makasalanan ka eh. O kaya yung nagka-COVID, na mapupunta pa yung sisi sa kanya. Ang kinokondem ng Panginoon kapag binibreak mo yung holiness law. Kasi alam niya dadami yung infection if you do that. And pang-apat, ito ang conclusion ko, no? God knew the increase in the knowledge of men in the observable universe to be a precursor in the leading events of the end times. Anong ibig kong sabihin? No? Alam ng Panginoon na one day, ang knowledge ng tao mag-i-increase. In fact, He predicted it. In Daniel chapter 12, ito ang sinabi ng angel kay Daniel. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll. Ibig sabihin, ang prophecy ito, isara mo muna until the time of the end. Yung description ng end times. Ano ang pinaka description niya sa end times? Sa King James Version, ang pagkakasabi doon, because the knowledge of men will increase and will become many. The original word is manifold. Ang kaalaman daw ng tao will increase so much manifold. Alam niyo po ba, yung technology ng cellphone na hawak nyo ngayon is greater than the technology ng Apollo 11. Ganon kabilis ang increase ng knowledge ng tao. Which means in the observable future, sa observable universe, alam ng Diyos na madidiscover natin tong mga gamot sa pandemic na ito. And God has allowed it. Ang paggamit ng gamot sa Biblia is not kawalan ng faith. Mamaya babalikan ko iyon. In fact, ini-encourage niya ito. Hindi naman lahat ginawa ng himala. In fact, ang miracle, by the very nature of the definition of miracle, is uncommon. So what is common is the healing of the medicine and the natural processes. Kaya doon tayo pupunta. Kaya magandang maalaman natin ano ang ibig sabihin ng pandemic na ito. Mamaya po, kung may tanong kayo, babalikan ko po yun. But for now, we will give the rest of the time sa ating mga doctors. And we'll ask si Pastor Alban to introduce our experts. Stop share.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Rene. By the way, if you have questions at gusto niyo nang itanong, instead of asking, you may want to put it in the chat para hindi makalimutan and mabasa na rin ni Pastor Rene. So Pastor Rene will answer any of the biblical questions. And then for our afternoon today, we have invited Doc Bea and Doc Leslie Tauli. So they're both related sa akin. Bea is my sister and sister-in-law ko si Doc Les. But both of them are working in medical hospitals dito sa Metro, hindi na wala to Metro, no? Sa Mindanao area. So they in a sense have a ringside view of what's happening sa pandemic. And today they'll be talking about the vaccine, and we've just given them time to share. So i-highlight ko lang dito si Doc Bea and Doc Les. Ayan po. So
Gusto ko lang sabihin si Doc Bea umaattend sa CBCM dati yan.
yeah, if you met her before habang nagsaschooling siya sa PGH. Diyan po siya sa atin nag-church sa Makati. Okay, but right now she's with NMMC, Northern Mindanao Medical, hindi ko alam yung C. So, but anyway, sila na mag-introduce ng kanilang self, and I think Bea will go first and followed by Doc Les. So, Bea, you're on.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay. So good afternoon. So yes, I'm currently working in one of the COVID centers here in Cagayan de Oro, so NMMC. But for now, I'll not be talking so much more on with regards to the pandemic, but more on COVID-19 vaccinations. So to start, this is just a simple illustration showing us how vaccines work. So a weakened or inactivated version of the virus or part of the virus is injected into the body, and the body's immune system then identifies this weak virus as a threat and produces antibodies. So after vaccination, if your body is later exposed to the disease-causing virus, these antibodies recognize them, and they are then ready to catch and destroy them. And this in turn would prevent illness. So vaccines work by training and preparing your body's immune system to recognize and fight off the virus that they specifically target. This is just a list of the current COVID-19 vaccine brands and types, and with the exception of Janssen by Johnson & Johnson, they require that you get 2 doses to be considered fully vaccinated. They also differ in terms of storage, with the Pfizer vaccines requiring lower temperatures with regards to transport and storage. What is usually emphasized or given importance is vaccine efficacy, or which means the percentage that you will be less likely to get infected after a full vaccination. So for Pfizer, for example, a percentage of 95% means that it is 95% less likely that you will be getting COVID-19 compared to a person without the vaccine. So for Sinovac, efficacy trials ranges from 65% to 91%, which is lower than the other mRNA virus vaccines. Currently, what is available in the Philippines are your AstraZeneca, Pfizer, the Sinovac, and the Sputnik vaccine, which is the Russian counterpart of the available COVID-19 vaccine. So they have the common side effects, which I will be discussing later, but they all have the common endpoint of producing an immune response to train and prepare your body to recognize and destroy the virus. So the question is one of the more important questions, or the common question is that which brand should I get? So syempre, we would prefer the vaccine with the higher efficacy, but it's actually comparing vaccine efficacy is actually difficult to do because there are other factors that determine how effective they are, especially when placing them into the real world situations. Like other factors that determine efficacy would be the location or where the trial of that vaccine was conducted, when during the pandemic the trial was conducted, and who were the participants involved in the study. So comparing Moderna and Pfizer to Johnson & Johnson, for example, the Moderna and Pfizer trials were held in the United States before the peak of cases, while the Johnson & Johnson trial was in South Africa and Brazil when new variants were starting to appear. And also when they held trials in the United States, these were the times that the cases were starting to peak. So all of these factors would influence vaccine efficacy. So despite having different efficacy rates, COVID-19 vaccines are all successful at preventing severe COVID, which is the goal of administering these vaccines to prevent serious adverse events, hospitalizations, and death. So the rates of all of the vaccine brands ranges from 85% to 100%. So this means that while it may still be possible to get COVID-19, even if you're vaccinated, the risk of dying from the disease decreases dramatically after vaccination. So why should I get vaccinated? So vaccination is just another tool used, an additional tool aside from the minimum public health standards that we can use to that we use in terms of fighting off the disease. So why should I get vaccinated? Because first, COVID vaccines are safe. So they have undergone clinical trials and they have passed FDA standards before being approved for use. And then there's the misconception that COVID vaccines can cause COVID-19 infection, which isn't true. So all of these vaccines are just inactivated or weakened viruses or part of the virus that may cause an immune response, but they do not actually cause COVID-19 disease. Also, these vaccines are known to be effective at preventing COVID-19 disease, and a vaccinated person is less likely to be infected compared to a person who has not been vaccinated. And if you do get infected because no vaccine is 100% effective, that vaccine can still prevent you from having a severe illness, and it decreases your chance of dying from the disease. Also, for the more recent studies, vaccines have been shown to reduce the risk of people spreading COVID-19, and vaccinated people are less likely to transmit the disease compared to those who are not vaccinated. So if you ask which COVID-19 vaccine is the best, the answer would be the first one that is available to you, since all of them have been shown to be effective. So for me, that vaccine was Sinovac, which was the first to arrive in Cagayan de Oro, where I'm currently working. So why did I decide to get vaccinated? Why not just wait for vaccines with higher effectivity like AstraZeneca or Pfizer? What influences my decision was that since every day going to work, every day I go to work with the possibility of getting exposed to an infected person, and I chose to have that percentage of added protection versus not being vaccinated. And there's no guarantee that even if those other vaccines would, there was no guarantee of the other vaccine brands arriving or becoming available for me if ever I got infected in the probably next few days or weeks. There was that with the vaccine, there's that added protection of having of having the severe form of the disease and possible prevention of hospitalization. So if ever if you do decide to get vaccinated, how can you go about it? Due to the limited supply of vaccines, our government currently has set a prioritization framework with the goal of vaccinating the most vulnerable groups in order to reduce the number of deaths and also to preserve the health care system capacity of the country. So for if you are a part of these priority groups, you can start to register and check with your local government units in order to be updated of the vaccination schedules. Before getting vaccinated, obtain the right information about the vaccines, and then informed consent is necessary because vaccination is not mandatory. So you get to decide if and when you will receive the vaccine. And then screening is done to check for eligibility, where you will be asked regarding other illnesses and the presence of allergies. So before receiving any medication or any type of vaccine, there are doctors and healthcare workers at the site who will screen your eligibility or your eligibility to receive a certain type of vaccine. So what should I do and expect after getting vaccinated? So you are usually monitored at the place where you had the vaccine for at least 15 minutes. And then just in case you have an unusual reaction, there are doctors or health workers at the site who can address any immediate reactions. This monitoring is increased if you have any type of immediate allergic reaction in the past to any type of vaccine, or if you have allergies to certain injectable treatments. And then you should expect to get a vaccination card that would tell you which COVID-19 vaccine you received, the date you received it, and where you received it. And it should also indicate when you should come in for a second dose. Because remember, full vaccination is only when you receive the 2 doses for a 2-regimen course. And usually, the effect of full vaccination only applies 2 weeks after your second dose. So side effects. Side effects after vaccination are normal, and they indicate that a person's body is building protection to COVID-19 infection, and they may include the following. So arm pain, redness, and swelling. And for the systemic symptoms, this would include tiredness, headache, muscle or joint pain, chills, fever, and nausea. So this varies from person to person, and some may not experience any side effects. So when I got my vaccine, I did not experience any of this, and for the first dose, and for the second dose, I just experienced mild arm pain, which disappeared after several minutes. Also, these side effects, just remember that side effects after your second shot may also be more intense than when you got your first shot, because the effect on your immune system would be greater. So are there steps? There are steps that you can take to address these side effects, like to reduce the local effect of arm pain. You can apply a cold compress and continue to move or exercise your arm. For systemic symptoms like fever, drink plenty of fluids, dress lightly, and you can take antipyretics like paracetamol. In most cases, the discomfort or pain is normal, and fever usually disappears after several hours or after a few days. So when should you contact a doctor or seek medical help? These are the instances if the redness or tenderness where you got the shot increases after 24 hours, and if your side effects are worrying you, or if they do not seem to go away after a few days. So the average duration of symptoms usually range from 1 to 3 days. There are also rare adverse reactions or serious complications that have been seen after vaccine administration. So you've probably heard of AstraZeneca causing blood clots. So these adverse reactions include also your anaphylaxis or severe allergic reactions, which can cause difficulty of breathing, and thrombosis or blood clot formation. So most of these anaphylactic reactions occur immediately or within minutes of getting the vaccine, which is why it is important that you are monitored at the site. So, but if ever this happens, these vaccine sites are equipped with medications and equipment to address or to treat these anaphylactic reactions. But remember that these adverse reactions are quite rare, usually occurring in from 7 to 12 individuals per million population. So the benefits of protection against severe COVID still outweighs any of the risks of these adverse reactions occurring. Since COVID vaccines are relatively new, what we still don't know is how effective these vaccines are against variants of the virus that cause COVID-19. However, early data show that they may work against some variants, but are also less effective against other variants. We also don't know at present how long these vaccines can protect people, or how long the antibodies we get from the vaccination will last. So even after we're vaccinated, we have to continue taking precautions. So vaccination is just, again, an additional tool that we can use in fighting the spread of the virus. And then while a COVID vaccine will protect or prevent serious illnesses, we still don't know the extent to which it keeps us from being infected and passing on the virus to others. Also, when we go out, we don't know who are vaccinated and who are not. So for now, we must continue to practice the standard health protocols of, again, wearing a mask, especially in crowded, closed and poorly ventilated areas. Continue to clean your hands frequently, cover cough or sneezes in your bent elbow or sleeve, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, clean and disinfect commonly touched surfaces, and at least keep a distance of 1 meter from others. And when indoors, you have to ensure good ventilation, such as by opening a window. So this is my last slide. You can ask any questions later. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Doc Bea. And next, I will ask si Doc Leslie to also share. And then after that, we can ask questions. Ayan po. So, Doc Les, you can be on. Ayan po.
No. Sorry.
It's okay. Okay. Sige lang. So some technicalities.
Okay.
Ayan.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening po.
I'm Leslie Tauli, and I'm the sister-in-law of Alban and Bea. I think Bea's presentation is comprehensive and has already covered everything that you need to know about the COVID vaccination. And siguro konti lang ma-add ko. Just for a background, Bea is working in a COVID hospital, the Northern Mindanao Medical Center. I think that's the identified hospital in Northern Mindanao to cater to COVID patients. And me in Bukidnon, I'm working in a government hospital, in a mission hospital. And our provincial hospital is the one that's catering to COVID patients. But right now we have surge here, and kakatuwa talaga. Wala na talaga kaming we're pushed because it's already full. The provincial hospital here cannot cater to all the patients having COVID. So recently, just this week talaga, my first experience of managing a severe COVID together with our pulmonologist. So it's just so timely that I had my second dose of COVID vaccine, the AstraZeneca, this week. Pero medyo nakakapraning pa rin. So this one, I will just tuwet Dadi, patabang daw ko tuwet.
Try pressing F5.
Okay.
If that works.
Sorry.
Ayan.
Naglala. Ken. Okay rin siya. So this is just the global data on COVID so far. So we're on the pandemic for more than a year now. So it has affected 170 million people all over the world, and the deaths are also 3.5 million. And locally, here in the Philippines, based on the DOH COVID-19 case tracker, our cases now in the Philippines have gone up to 1.2, I think as of today or yesterday, and then the deaths to 20,000. 722, and then recovered cases 1.1 million, and I think the active cases are 53,000. So basically the mortality rate is, I think, 4%, and it's still surging. We just experienced the second wave, tama yun si Pastor kanina, no? So the second wave was experienced in NCR area around March, and now it has spread out to the Visayas and Mindanao region. And so far, vaccination has started, I think, earlier this year. February ba to, Bay, no? Sa inyo? Sa Manila, February?
February in Manila, probably March.
Yeah, parang diretso-diretso. Okay, and then so far we have vaccinated for a total of 110 million. Of course, kasama na yung mga bata dyan. We have doses given 4.5 million, and then the fully vaccinated, yung sabi ni Doc Bea, those who have received 2 vaccines, 2 shots, are 1.03 million. So the percentage of population fully vaccinated so far is 1% pa. Compared to the worldwide vaccination record, they have given out 1.7 billion. Those who are fully vaccinated, 407 million, and then the percentage of population fully vaccinated is 5.2%. So that's for the data. And then this one is presented by Bea. So layo pa kaita ba 1%, but my friend from Canada is quite impressed to know that pati daw sa Mindanao nabibigyan na yung mga senior citizen even in the barrios, no, because in Canada they just had also their first vaccine, and also in my friend in other country like Sweden. So somehow okay din naman tayo, no, na naka-start na tayo. So far, like what Bea has presented here, the vaccines, you can get this from the DOH website. I think there are already 7 vaccines that has received the EUA, emergency use authorization, no, here in the Philippines, and I think one is also applying the Novavax, pero hindi pa na approved. So far, yung binensya ni Bea, 4. Did we have Johnson here, Bay? Meron na ba?
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah. So it's only Johnson, J&J, that is given us 1 dose, and so the rest are given 2 doses. So just this chart will just tell you about the info on these vaccines, about the storage, the dose and frequency, and vaccine efficacy. So Bea has mentioned already, has presented the adverse effects in detail. So ako, i-emphasize ko lang talaga yung vaccine efficacy. So I think for a vaccine to be approved, to have the approval of emergency use authorization in every country, it has to have an efficacy rate of at least 50%, I guess. So all of these vaccines have passed that. So ito lang muna ang inano ko, i-highlight ko. Sinovac, that 65 to 91%, and it has been approved in 17 countries. Pfizer, of course, 70 countries. 95% again symptomatic COVID-19 patients after the second dose, 1 week after the second dose. Astra, 70.4% again symptomatic COVID 2 weeks after the second dose. So it has already conferred protection on those who were vaccinated. Gamaleya, and 100% against moderate and severe cases of COVID 3 weeks after the second dose, and then Moderna. So you have seen there that all these vaccines that we approve has shown efficacy against this COVID infection. And maybe you have wondered because ang bilis, no? So for a vaccine to be approved, it would require actually years of research and testing before it gets to your clinic. But of course, with the burden of this pandemic in 2020, scientists have really embarked on a race to produce a safe and effective vaccine in order for coronavirus in just so short a time. And so ito, yung mga vaccine developed, so ito kasi, so the vaccine, hindi basta-bastang ma-approve. So because of that, because of what the data that we just have presented, increasing pa rin yung incidence ng COVID and even death. So they have double time, all the researchers, the scientists to come up with all these vaccines. I think there are, if I'm not mistaken, mga 92 siguro pa ang who have undergone these trials. And so far, mga 27, I think 27 have reached the third phase of the trial na. And so sa atin, 7 yung na-approve natin. So the developmental stages for in coming up with the vaccine is talagang mataas. So usually it starts with the pre-clinical vaccine development with exploratory phase, antigen research, preclinical phase, and then going to the clinical trials in humans, the phase 1, konti muna i-test, looking for local and systemic reactions, and then you go to hundreds in the target population sa phase 2, and then sa phase 3, usually thousands na ang ita-trial mo yung vaccine. So the thing that also hastened this development of the vaccine is maraming na-enroll. Of course, thousands ang na-enroll, no? So mas mabilis yung results ng trials. Okay. And so why vaccinate? I think Bea has presented this also. We know that COVID, with what we have known so far, because with COVID-19, talagang everything is changing, no? From the start, yung dati sabi ano lang, droplet infection, yung ganon, fomites, and then recently CDC has come up with, it's an airborne, it transmitted through airborne transmission, so mga ganon. Even the protocols are changing every now and then. But the thing is, we know that COVID is a viral infection, but it's highly infectious, and then most of those who are infected will just have mild infections, okay? But ma-overwhelm lang kasi nga talagang marami. I can remember the thing that happened in New York na talagang dami-dami na hindi na makayanan ng healthcare. So you can have no infection and then no symptoms, asymptomatic. A percentage, I don't know, 30% at asymptomatic, and they don't know that they can pass it on to the others. You will have moderate symptoms. So by the clinical practice guidelines, kung moderate, meron ka ng pneumonia in X-ray, ang mild wala pa, and then severe, yung mga oxygenation, tapos na ng oxygen, and then most of them are hospitalized, and then some would succumb to death, especially those with comorbidities. So these trials have found out, even if you would look at all the trials that and the data that has been presented here and abroad, that those who have already received the vaccines are less likely to experience this part, the severe symptoms. They also presented that, no? They can even have protection against symptomatic COVID. It could be just moderate or mild, but more so against severe hospitalized COVID that requires hospitalization and even death. And ito yung importante kasi especially we have limited ICU beds in the Philippines. So siguro before yung wala pang vaccine, I know that you have heard of a lot of doctors who have died, especially in NCR area, kasi wala pang vaccine. And even now, I've heard of some friends and even one doctor who was working here recently. He already have he's on training in NMMC. He already have that Sinovac vaccine, pero na COVID pa rin siya. After a week of rotation in a COVID ward, na COVID pa rin siya, pero mild lang. Yung ganon. So at least yun lang, 2 weeks away or 10 days away from work. That's so much burden also on those who are still working, who are still taking care of those COVID patients. So that's the most important thing. And if you would weigh the benefits and risks, more benefits pa rin ang makukuha with those who will have themselves vaccinated than those who are not. So ito ang summary: lower risk of having severe COVID or death, and or that requires hospitalization. I would like to highlight the example in Israel. All of us know about the Israel being the first, I think one of the first that has rolled out vaccine. Konti lang naman sila, ilang million lang yata, 5 or 6 million ang population. So they have started vaccination in February, and 2 months from the rollout, they have noticed a drop really in their cases. So I think they have vaccinated 85% of their adults. So they have noticed 2 months after, no? So March, April. So in April, they have gotten data that there's a drop in cases, 77%, drop in hospitalizations, 68%, and 67% drop in severe hospitalization. So that's much. That's an important data. Big na talaga yan. So even in the States, I think maker din sila, they have all the resources, no, to have vaccines. I think initially what was approved in the States, Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson, and they have seen really also a drop in the cases and hospitalizations. Gulat nga ako kasi si Clyde mahilig mag-basketball, and he was telling me meron na daw nagwa-watch ng basketball. Kasi dati, di ba, all the players lang in a certain stadium, na sila lang, and they just test themselves. But recently daw, they welcome na daw those who have been vaccinated fully, parang isang side sila, and then those who are not, or sa other side na nagmamask and nag-social distancing, parang ganun. So even in Israel, you could see that na sila, kung yung iba, they're not wearing masks anymore. And also the benefit that we can get from vaccination is decrease the transmission, of course, and decrease the transmitting it to others, and decrease the emergence of new variants. So one expert says that for as long as the infection is still there, there's still COVID, the longer that you're infected, the more the variants are going to crop up. Okay, so I think we have the UK variant, the India, the South African for now, and may Brazil pa nga. So, and it's still under study as to are they covered with the vaccine that we have or not. So maybe in the future, baka more variants will be coming up pa. So yan, another thing to deal with. So the priority A group, Tagalog lang ito, Bea mentioned this. So thank God that we're already starting this one. So here in our place in Bukidnon, we have started, I think most of the health workers are already vaccinated. Yung iba Sinovac, they're done in March, and then AstraZeneca, the others. Also senior citizens, those who are willing to be vaccinated. And then recently, just last week, they have opened it to the A3, those who are 18 to 59 years old with comorbidities like obesity, hypertension, diabetes, COPD, cancer, and all those. Pwede na sila ma-vaccinate. Even asthma. The daughters of my na teenager o mga 20s na vaccinate sila na may asthma lang. And mga non-medical frontline personnel, I think those who are working in private call center, yun, kailangan mag-work. I think they're the ones who are next in line in the vaccination, both government and private, I guess. So ito lang yung, I think Bea mentioned the process, no? So when you're vaccinated, there's a data that they have to get, I think, mag-register, especially sa local health unit. So all the senior citizens, for example, they will list them down. And then you have to register, and there's a counseling area, and there's a screening area, vaccination area kung na-screen ka and okay ka, na-screen ka ng doctor. And then the monitoring area, post-vaccination monitoring area, which is very, very important. No? Yung na-mention ni Bea na you have to monitor patients, especially those who have a history of allergies. So this is the health risk algorithm that we have to follow. Kasi we vaccinated our staff here in Bethel Hospital, so you have to follow what a DOH requires for a vaccination center to have. So the health risk algorithm, this is being done in the screening area. So we do not vaccinate if 16 years old or younger. If with allergy, it's hard to determine this to polysorbate or PEG. It's a component of a vaccine. And then if with severe reaction after the first dose of vaccine. So far, in our 130 plus staff, isa lang talaga yung parang hindi naman severe, nag-react siya. Few minutes after given the vaccination, nag-rashes siya, and then she started coughing. This patient has asthma, she has diabetes, she has obesity. So we really had to administer oxygen on her and give steroids and all that, and nebulizations. And I was wondering why nilagyan na namin siya sa last day, just Friday. So I was wondering, chill na chill talaga siya. Oh, okay ka lang, wala kang pabalik-balik ko sa kanya, wala ka nag-rush, hindi ka nag-rush, hindi ka nag... You know what? Nag-self-medicate pala siya ng steroids. Kaya pala wala siyang effect at all. Sabi ko, hindi ako nag-recommend dyan. Pero yun, so she was observed for 30 minutes, especially if with history of allergy to food, egg, or medicine, or mga asthmatic. Usually we observe them for 30 minutes or longer if needed. So, who do we defer? Defer is hindi siya yung contraindicated talaga. Defer is for the meantime. You can reschedule it. Of course, those who have symptoms, baka COVID symptoms na yan. So, just like any other vaccine, you don't give vaccine to those who are not well. So, kung may ubo, headache, fever, you have to ask all this from the vaccine. And if they have history of exposure to confirmed or suspected COVID-19 case the past 2 weeks, so ito, sad to say, those na na-assign namin sa 7-bed COVID area namin, just this week, na-postpone sila. So, na-defer kasi pina-defer talaga ng DOH doctor na until RT-PCR is being done during the washout period. Para lang daw safe kasi exposed sila. Even if parang low risk lang sila. And those who have received convalescent plasma monoclonal antibodies for COVID-19 the past 90 days, have received any vaccine the past 2 weeks. So there's one lecture that you can defer COVID-19 vaccine over the rabies or tetanus. So mas urgent talaga. If the patient needs rabies or vaccine or tetanus, i-prioritize mo yan over COVID-19 vaccine. So if the patient has had any other vaccine the past 2 weeks, so defer muna, i-reschedule lang. And then pregnant women in the first trimester, so hindi siya bibigyan. And actually, added dito is yung na they have COVID, they were diagnosed with COVID-19. You wait for 90 days, but protocols recommendations have changed recently. Basta na-clear ka na, tapos ka na, recovered ka na, you can get the vaccine right away. Don't wait for 90 days na daw. So yun. And then the illnesses that you need to get clearance from your attending physician are those who have autoimmune disease, SLE, mga myasthenia, those with AIDS, HIV, those with cancer or malignancy, especially those who are undergoing chemotherapy or radiation, or on remission, those who underwent transplant, or those who were taking steroid treatment, for a long time. And of course, those who are bedridden, terminal illness with less than 6 months prognosis, of course, you just have to weigh the benefits and risk, and you have to get a clearance from the attending physician. Baka naman kasi, ay, kasi binigyan ng vaccine kaya namatay na tuloy. So, ganun. So, you really need to get clearance from the physician. So, yon. Ito yung takeaway ko. Personally, just this week talaga, that's why I put that verse there. It's really the Lord that will give you peace, even if vaccinated ka na, you do all the precautions, minimum health standards. While I was making rounds on that COVID patient, tama ba yung pipi ko? Kulang ba yun? And then, konting mga aches and sore throat and ubot. Baka may COVID na po. So, you just have to trust God that He has, it's been there, just like what Pastor has said. Alam na ng Panginoon ito, and we just have to be vigilant. We have to do our part and our personal responsibilities by doing the minimum health standards, and we have to educate our patients. I always tell my patients and their families that even our staff, even when we have the vaccination already, we don't stop being vigilant. So especially now that we're experiencing the surge here in Bukidnon, stay at home, kung pwede, stay at home lang. And those who are sick, don't report to work, because you are most contagious. COVID is most contagious few hours before the symptom would start. So yung mga, buti naman yung ibang organizations, for now, they are mandated to stay at home, work from home. So yung mga teachers, silang Marcy, 2.5 days lang daw sila sa school. Okay, and then me and Bea, of course, we're advocate of vaccination. So get vaccinated, vaccines work. We believe in it, and I know that scientists are also put by God there to do these things, to take care of these vaccines to help us curb this pandemic. And one doctor said one shot would get us closer to the end of this pandemic. So yun lang. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Doc Les. Thank you, Doc Bea. We hope we'll still remain, and we only have a few minutes, but we are here to, if there's anybody who wants to ask a question, now would be the time to ask. So I'll still have Bea and Doc Les and Pastor Rene on our spotlight. Ayan po. So Kuya Val and Ateniki, yes, if you want to ask a question, you can ask that.
Yeah. This is for Doc Bea or Doc Leslie. We have this thing going on that the possibility that 2 vaccines would be mixed, first and second dose. I'm wondering, because Sinovac is using the virus itself, the other vaccines are using the mRNA, the messenger RNA. Now, would it be wise to mix? And if it is, we got our first shot of AstraZeneca already, and it says after 12 weeks would be the second dose. If we allow it to mix with other vaccine, when are we supposed to get our second dose? Okay, dalawa yun, bale, is it okay to mix? Do we have the scientific data that would show that it is safe? And then second, kailan namin makukuha yung second dose? Kasi AstraZeneca kami, dapat 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Doc Les.
So that's really one question. No? So for now, sir, you have to have the same vaccine. So pag Sinovac po, Sinovac yung second. Based po sa study, Doctor, I'm following Dr. Salvania, no? He's part of the working group po. So I would just say that it's still under study po. Na mixing of underway. Yung vaccine mixing studies are underway, like Astra and Pfizer. to have good antibody response. But it's still preliminary yung mga studies nila. So we still don't follow it. Like for now, like kami, mga healthcare workers, we still follow the Astra ko nung March and then Astra din yung second. So kasi hindi pa natin alam baka may mga unlikely na mga effect na we can experience. Kasi sabi ko nga, it keeps changing and changing. So for now, the recommendation, same vaccine, you should have the same vaccine. Hindi yung And then I think your local government unit would see to it that you will have the same vaccine on the second dose po.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. Ate Mabel is raising her hand. So we'll have, is this Kuya Ferdy muna and then
Yes.
Alex up next. Sige po.
Magandang hapon po. Ako ay may tatlong katanungan. Ang una kong katanungan, ito po bang vaccine na ito, whether anong brand siya, ito po ba ay one-time vaccine? That's the first one.
One time in terms of
Renew every year? Every year po ba ito?
So for now, we don't, so it's under study, so we don't know the extent how long these antibodies would last. So what the goal for now is to vaccinate as many people as we can in as fast a time as possible, because we don't know when the protection will last. So we don't know if it's just 3 months or 6 months, because it's still under study. But for now, the recommendation is to get the 2 doses in order to be fully vaccinated. Unfortunately, we can't tell right now until when that protection would last. So probably it could be like the flu vaccine where you get it yearly, but it's currently under study. So wala pang sagot yung tanong na yun. But what we do know is that from the doses given, it does offer protection already. We just don't know for how long.
Pwede bang sundan ko lang yung tanong ni Kuya Ferdy? Kasi may nagsabi sa akin na hindi naman siya doktor pero nagtatrabaho siya sa isang medical field na sinasabi, ay siya, medrep siya. Sabi niya, Pastor, pag nagpa-injection ka niya, next year meron uli iyan. Tapos next year may bayad na. Kaya parang lang yan, parang very siya, ano man tawag doon, parang suspicious siya na parang pakagat lang daw yung initial vaccine. Dahil sa mga susunod na taon, mahal na daw yan. Sabi ko wala pa akong sabi ko first time ko narinig sa iyo. So, hindi ko sure.
Let me comment, Pastor. That could be true, no? Kasi for now, we know that the vaccine is free. Every government, I think all over the world, purchase these vaccines for the people, for the people of the country. So for now, as what Dr. Bea has said, everything is still under study. Kahit yung question ni Sir kanina, yung mixing of vaccines, no? So, but the experts, recently I attended a vaccinology lecture. The experts are looking at the effect about 6 to 8 months, pero hindi pa rin sure, no? So that's why he was saying that if you receive the inactivated virus, the Sinovac, there's a bigger chance that you will have another vaccine every year. Parang every year na, parang flu vaccine na yearly na to get protected. So pero sabi ni Bea, under study pa rin lahat. Kasi there's no single test to see na, ay okay pa ba itong levels ng antibodies ko? Not like hepatitis B vaccine na monitor natin ang antibody level. Ito, hindi. There's no single test na masasabi natin na ay okay pa. So still under study pa po. And take note that iba-iba ito ha. May mRNA, yung mga Pfizer, Moderna. Yung isa viral vector, yung adenovirus Astra, yung isa yung Sinovac is inactivated virus. So iba-ibang klase.
Okay.
My second question is about yung baby, newborn baby. Yung bang milk from the mother, yung milk from the mother, which affected or siya ay mayroong COVID. No? Yung bang baby ay mahawaan dun sa kanyang milk? Yung
Ikaw, anak, Bay.
Okay, so so we know the transmission of COVID-19. So for now it's droplet, and there's also the newest findings that it could probably be airborne. So ang usual pa rin transmission is respiratory, or more of from secretion sa mother to the baby. So for at present, there has been no study showing or no occurrence of a mother passing the disease through breastfeeding. So it isn't transmitted to breastfeeding, and mothers are continued, even if they get COVID, they are advised to continue to keep breastfeeding, just following the proper precautions of wearing a mask, practicing hand hygiene, because ang hawaan pa rin is through respiratory secretions, hindi siya through breast milk. So the advice is still to continue breastfeeding. Wala pang instances na napapasa siya through lactation or through breastfeeding.
Meron lang po akong idadagdag. Yung aking sister-in-law, si Jehan, na-diagnose po siya ng COVID while she was pregnant. So, instead of St. Luke's or Asian, she was recommended na manganak sa PGH kasi they can handle it properly there. So, nanganak siya, and praise God kasi yung bata po walang COVID. Yun lang po.
My last question is, since nawala pa naman nababalitang taong grasa na nagkakaroon ng COVID, no? Ano kaya ang vaccine para naman sa kanila? Are they also entitled to have vaccine?
Para narinig ko na to
Yes, actually, it's they're part of the priority groups, no? The indigents, they're actually part of the A priority group, I think A5. So kahit hindi natin yun naririnig na we don't know actually the statistics, but yes, they are highly encouraged to be vaccinated. With regards to brand, again, brand doesn't matter. All of these vaccines are effective.
Ayun po.
Kuya Ferdy, sagutin ko lang po yun kasi may nabasa akong article na yung mga taong grasa at homeless, titipunin ng DSWD. Parang iyon yung mechanism nila kasi kung hindi sila kukunin, una, karamihan walang ID, walang means ng tapos yung iba hindi aral. So parang ang isang balak, narinig ko sa Maynila, DSWD ang would take care of them.
Okay, again, if you have a question, please, you can raise your hand or put it on the chat. So I have two questions here on chat, but I'll have Lex, if you can say your question. Please ask it of our doctors here. Lex?
Thank you, Kuya. Yung questions ko po para sa akin at para sa friend ko. First, yung question ko for myself, I plan to get vaccinated soon. So since right-handed ako, better ba na left arm yung pabakunahan ko? Since hindi ko alam kung may effect syempre sa hindi ko pa alam yung magiging effect sa katawan ko, and I cannot parang prevent, working or using my arms or my body. And also pwede ba ako mag-shower after a few hours? And can I still do physical activities like exercising after ako ma-vaccinate? And yung second question ko is para sa friend ko, si Tin, kasi she had a high blood recently and meron siyang maintenance. 37 years old siya. She's asking if paano ba daw siya may encourage na magpa-vaccinate kasi yung fear niya, mataas yung fear niya sa side effects. So, yun yung questions ko.
Ikaw sa one.
With regards sa arm preference, sige, yes, if you're right-handed, I'd advise it that you have the vaccine on the left. It's more for convenience because one of the side effects nga, although it doesn't happen all the time, is pain and muscle pain on the arm where you get the vaccine. So it's advised to get it on the arm where you're non-dominant. And then what's the other question? The second question, the other questions were with regards to your normal activities. You can continue to exercise, to take a shower. So walang contraindication to any of your usual activities as long as you're feeling well after getting the vaccine. So wala namang restrictions in activity after getting the vaccine. Siguro if you're like you get fever, you probably be advised to rest or take paracetamol, but you can continue doing your regular activities. For 10, one of the priority groups actually is those people with comorbidities. So even if you have hypertension, diabetes, or other diseases, you're actually highly encouraged to get vaccinated because COVID-19 infection in these populations has the tendency to be worse or more severe. So what would encourage you, because you have this illnesses or other comorbidities, that all the more that you should get vaccinated versus a person nga na walang other problems, healthy. Because remember, COVID infection is worse when you have other concomitant illnesses. So hypertensive, diabetic, highly encouraged na magpa-vaccinate.
Mga docs, encourage you ba yung Ivermectin na inumin ng mga tao?
Mahabang usapan niya. Ivermectin, pero the current data is really there's no evidence for its use. It's not shown to prevent the disease. It's not shown to improve those already infected, and then it even has a tendency to sort of worsen the situation because people kasi naka-Ivermectin, I can probably be less prone to getting the disease, so you relax your vigilance with regards to ano. And then in terms of treatment, unfortunately wala talaga siyang evidence.
Napansin ko lang ho, hindi kumakapit talaga garapata kapag naka-Ivermectin ka.
All right. Sige po. A couple more questions here on the chat and let me read it. So si Mark said, oops, may maingay na ba?
Bata.
Read na lang po.
Yeah, I can answer the question of Mark. So I had a flu vaccine 2 weeks after my first dose of AstraZeneca, and the doctor gave a clearance. But are there any studies on this? Okay lang. So that was so previously when the vaccines were first released, they stated the minimum interval of at least 2 weeks before getting a different vaccine or any type of vaccine. But for now, ang latest na studies, okay lang with regards to interval. So you can administer concomitant or even less than the 2 weeks. So okay lang yung clearance na 2 weeks after your flu vaccine. So hindi na masyadong strict with regards to intervals.
And then if we can answer also Apple's question. Yung question ni Apple is, I have lupus and I have been trying to contact yung rheumatologist. Pero no answer pa din from her. Ibig sabihin po ba na hindi po ako pwede ma-vaccinate? I'm a teacher.
It's one of those illnesses that needs medical clearance from the attending physician. So I'm sure she would be asked to have that clearance when she goes to the vaccine center. Autoimmune disease.
So ayun, Apple. We need to have a doctor clear that for you.
Yung kapatid ko po ay kidney transplant. Ano siya. Tapos, nung i-injectionan siya nung AstraZeneca, ayaw nung doktor niya, parang antayin na lang daw yung Pfizer. Actually, ayaw siyang bigyan ng go signal sa AstraZeneca. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung binanggit, nakalimutan ko na. Pero parang sabi nung kanyang doctor sa St. Luke's, they would prefer na mag-Pfizer na lang siya. Parang
6:40 na dad.
Sige. Okay. Ayan po. I know marami pa sigurong tanong, no? But again, we have Doc Bea and Doc Leslie. Andito lang naman. Yun yung maganda, no? So we can ask more questions. But thank you everybody for asking. Ayan po. Siguro, since it's already 6:40, we're actually 10 minutes out. Ano lang po, can we ask Pastor Rene to maybe pray for especially for our doctors and just to close out this session?
yes, so especially dahil sila everyday exposed
Opo.
doon sa
Surge na po
COVID na
dito.
ito. So let's lift them up in prayer then and the family. Lord, we thank you for the chance to even interact and to have a knowledge that long before in the Bible, contained mo na ang mga infectious diseases at hindi ito na wawala sa iyo. We can be rest assured that you are sovereign in all things. But you also gave us the responsibility na mag-ingat at gawin ang lahat ng necessary sa natural processes para makaiwas po kami dito. Salamat for the guidelines. We continue to pray for our two sisters na nagwo-work po sa hospital. Dalangin po namin si Doc Bea at Doc Leslie, Panginoon, na inyo pong ingatan sa araw-araw. Ilayo niyo po sila sa mga sakit na ito ay hindi pumasok sa kanilang pangangatawan. At gamitin niyo ang mga gamot at mga vaccines na para maiwasan po nila ang mga sakit na ito. We also lift up to you all the members na sila man po, Panginoon, ay inyo pong ingatan. Ano man po ang mga agam-agam nila ay patuloy silang kumonsulta, Panginoon. At ang aming dalangin na sa kanilang pang-araw-araw na buhay, patuloy po ang pananampalataya sa inyo, ganun din po ang pag-iingat. Maraming salamat po for tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, thank you everybody. Can we have one last picture before you go?
Picture.
So if you could show your video. Ayan po, and then just for our so panghuling shot lang.